fans, come on in. Let's huddle up. Let's talk about this week's game with the University of Mississippi. First of all, I want to reflect briefly on last week's game, saying that for the players, this has been a long week. It's been a very long week in preparation for Ole Miss. That being said, you fans have had a bit of a long week too. Anytime we lose, it sticks in our craw a bit, and it's tough to get rid of that taste. But we're lucky this week in a sense because we have homecoming, and that's what's enthused me more so than I would have been. I can remember a couple of homecomings that we had when I was at the university, and they were joyful. They were absolutely joyful. I tried to visualize what it's like today and put myself and our team in that position. And I can remember so clearly, first of all, it's a tough waiting for a night game, okay? As a player, and I know you fans, you want to get it on. For a player, it's very difficult because it is a long day. Your emotions from the breakfast to pre-game meal. You're kind of tight, but you're trying to be cool and relaxed, and yeah, we'll be ready. You just can't wait to get out there. Finally, the time comes when you get on the bus to be able to leave for the stadium. Now, those of you that know Tuscaloosa may remember the old Moonwinks Hotel out on Route 11, just past Holt a little bit. Well, that's where Coach Bryant used to take his teams when we played in Tuscaloosa, to the Moonwinks Motel. Well, we'd get on that bus, and it was quiet. It was quiet. Coach Bryant was a quiet man until he had something to say. And on game days, between having talked to we players at breakfast and then at the pregame meal, he didn't have a whole lot left to say. So as players, we kind of took on his demeanor in a sense, and folks, I hated the bus rides to the games. They were so quiet. We were so tight in a sense. At least I was. I mean, Cotton Clark, our halfback, you know, he had some relaxation you could see. But I promise you, when we talked on the bus, we only talked about this loud. Hey, yeah, what do you think? Yeah. You wouldn't giggle. You wouldn't see something and laugh. Homecoming was special. Riding on the bus, we'd see the fans starting out in Holt on our way to Tuscaloosa. They'd be lined up on Route 11, University Avenue, with their signs, with the different outfits for homecoming, which was great to see, man. They'd be showing the floats for the first time, or at least we players would get to see the floats for the first time at their completion, because during the week we'd have a chance to see the sororities and the fraternities building their floats. I mean, the students were working hard, which is another way of forgetting about the loss the week before, or at least helping it get off our minds. Those students worked so hard in the fraternities, the sororities, at building that homecoming float, building and maintaining that homecoming spirit. It's contagious, and it does carry over to the players. We know we have a responsibility of players to get ourselves to own up to doing our best. But whenever you start thinking about how many people are going to be affected emotionally by the outcome of the game, it puts a little bit or more of a personal emphasis on things. You start to feel maybe the weight a little bit of feeling, man, I got to do well. If I don't do well, if we don't win, just think how many people aren't going to feel very good, you know? It does add a pressure because you want to be a part of your university, your friends, society in general. You want it to roll smoothly. You don't want to be the reason for it to throw some sadness or tough feelings that way. So we players feel a little bit of extra pressure. You go in that locker room, man, before the game, and you're trying to focus on your job and all, but there's celebration outside the locker rooms everywhere. Well, Coach Bryant had a way about himself, as I said earlier, and you folks know, he was rather quiet until he had something to say and had a way of communicating with his people. Before we went out on the field, folks, he had a unique way, and it was different almost every game, but still fell back into his basic self. It wasn't surprising. But he had a way of enforcing our focus, getting us really into a tunnel vision mode, so to speak. And if it was possible, and it seemed like it always was, he had a way to elevate our passion. Man, when we hit that door to go out there, it wasn't any, lead up to anything. Other than Coach Bryant would finally end up saying, well, let's go. Oh, man. And we burst out of there going to work. And most of the time, we were successful. Well, Coach Saban has his way of dealing with his team. He wanted to see early in the week how his team's going to respond to the adversity that they haven't been familiar with in quite some time. I liked what he said about, on game day, we all have the will to win. But what we do need to see is the will to prepare to be able to be successful. So this week's practices was really a team effort, but an individual effort. Every single player individually needs to convince himself that he's doing his absolute best to be better individually. And then it goes together in the team concept. It's hard to do. We're human. It's hard to stay focused. But you know what, folks? Anything worthwhile is hard to accomplish. Otherwise, anybody could do it, huh? So we're looking at Ole Miss today. Our homecoming patsy. Usually, homecoming teams are supposed to be patsies. Well, these Rebels are headed by one of the best coaches I've seen, and his name is Houston Nutt. You can count on Coach Nutt to put a bunch of guys out on the field tonight that are hungry, believing that they can win. They're coming off a bye week, so physically they're stronger at this point than they've been since before the season started. The injuries have healed up a bit. He'll have all of his people playing. The strength of the Ole Miss Rebels has been offense, scoring 37 points a game in 5 games. They have a quarterback that they just brought in this season named Jeremiah Masoli. He can run. He can run. He's not a big guy. He's only about 5'10", but 220 pounds. He can run, but he can also throw. An offense that's averaging 37 points a game is pretty strong. There's only one other senior on this team besides Masoli, and that's the wide receiver, Marquise Summers, right? So they have a young offense, young offensive line. They're going to be full of enthusiasm. But given the fact that they do only have 2 senior starters, I think the defense of our Tide could slow them down. The other side of the ball for the Ole Miss Bears, that's what they are now, the Bears. Okay, I'm having some difficulty switching in a matter of days. We'll all get it eventually. But against the Tide, the Bears' defense is going to see the best they've seen. Now, Ole Miss has 7 seniors on that defense, which is nice. You figure mature. But the fact of the matter is they've given up 32 points per game. Okay. I wouldn't call Ole Miss Bears a patsy, but they don't have real long claws right now. I expect the Crimson Tide to be able to roll over those Bears from Ole Miss and to have a great evening, great homecoming, finalized with a victory. I'll be back to you soon, folks. Roll Tide, huh? Ready? Break.